Hello, my name is Alex Ross, and today I'll be talking about the occupational therapy role in driving and community mobility across the lifespan. What is community mobility? As defined by the American Occupational Therapy Association, it's moving around in the community and using public or private transportation such as driving, walking, bicycling, or accessing and riding in buses, taxicabs, or other transportation systems. Going to touch on those modes of transportation covered by the lifespan for an individual from infancy and childhood to adolescence and young adulthood, and finally discussing older adults. I'll also be talking about evaluations and assessment an occupational therapist can use, as well as interventions covering adaptive equipment and alternative means of transportation. So why is mobility important? Community mobility is an important part of independence in a person's identity, and most people value its spontaneity. So why should OT be involved? From a historical perspective, occupational therapists have been providing the development and driver rehabilitation services for more than 30 years. OTs are a good fit. They look at the patient holistically and can contribute in a way that no other profession can. OTs understand the background and the medical needs of a client or patient, as well as taking into consider financial limitations or when alternative methods of transportation would best suit the client. Another reason is transportation and community mobility is associated with occupation. So the needs may be different for each stage of the lifespan, and transportation modes may vary, but each of those modes allow an individual to go from one location to another, allowing participation of occupations. And at times, the occupation can be in and of itself. The mode of transportation is the occupation, such as going for a bike ride for the fun of the activity. And taking a look at the domain of occupational therapy, looking at the framework, looking at performance in areas of occupation, performance skills, performance patterns, context, activity demands, and client factors. With transportation and community mobility, for the areas of occupation, almost all of the areas are covered. The 7 out of 8 areas, which the only one that's missing would be rest and sleep, which would not be advisable if you're riding a bicycle or driving a car. As far as the performance skills, all would be covered as far as motor skills, process skills, and communication interaction skills. All 3 of those would be vitally important to getting around town. So I'm going to do a quick overview to talk about evaluations, assessment, and interventions, and then I'll go into the details for each stages of the lifespan and what that entails. And for evaluations, you have the occupational profile, which is the initial step in the evaluation plan, and then moving on to the analysis of occupation performance when specific problems are addressed. The next, it would go on to the assessment, which for each of the different lifespans, an assessment such as the Canadian model of Canadian occupational performance measure may be used. In that, an OT generalist, and when I go over older drivers, I'll go into more detail about the difference between an OT generalist and an OT driving specialist. But an OT generalist performing an assessment, maybe speaking with a patient or client, and in the section on self-care, an aspect of community management may be discussed as far as transportation issues. So then, after the assessment is made, then moving on to the intervention, the occupational therapist will come up with a plan, and then implementation, and then review. And we'll review the intervention, reviewing the process to see how close it is to the targeted outcomes. And next I will go into watch a short video, and it's a clip of an OTA keynote speech highlighting some new technology and the potential future of occupational therapists when dealing with transportation and aging, and kind of recapping again why community mobility is so important to individuals and occupational therapists.
So finally, let's get to the topic that Alan highlighted, and the very topic that got me into aging in the first place. I became a specialist, if you will, in older drivers. That's somewhere trapped between humor and horror, but we can go through between there. Think about this little list. This is from a HMO in California. Top 4 fears. I like this. Being diagnosed with a fatal disease. That seems reasonable. Number 2, losing the ability to drive. How about 3, a spouse being diagnosed with a fatal disease? By the way, I'm going to jump my own slide, because if you look below, this was from a focus group we did. A gentleman reported, you can always get another wife, but you can only get one driver's license. By the way, what is transportation? You know, I know that I highlighted health, I talked about work and staying in your own home. But I have to tell you something. I can give you a place where you will have great shelter, 3 meals a day, and health care. Anybody want to take it? It's called prison. Before you can do anything, you've got to get there first. Transportation, and transportation in the United States is defined as driving. With 70% of the population out where transit either serves poorly or not at all, it is the glue that holds all those big and little things that you call life together. So how do we do this? What's the philosophy? How can we push this forward? Well, in my lab, what we've looked at is, let's see if we can push the car a little bit further. So we've got a number of vehicles out on the road. These are 3 of them. We've got 6 altogether. They're about $1 million a piece with instrumentation, looking at physiological measures, metrics, performance behind the wheel. By the way, if you're ever in the Boston area or New Hampshire where we drive, and you see these vehicles, go to the 2nd floor of the nearest building. But what we're looking at is high-performance driving. I want you to envision not just the car. We're taking this type of work into homes and in workplaces and the like that will be able to detect how is that person performing. Are they stressed? Are they fatigued? Are they well? And then the environment will change in real time. So with respect to the car, temperature, lights, vibration to remind you what's going on. The notion is, can we use technology in the environment that we work in to improve the performance and optimal performance of the user? So we're doing this in the driving. You're seeing this technology already going into Volvo, BMW, and you'll see various other pieces of this technology out on the market within 10 years. But by the way, driving may not be a lifetime choice. I want to introduce to you Agnes. This is the Age Gain Now empathy system that was developed by OTs, geriatricians, and engineers at MIT. And what we looked at was, how could we create a suit that would give the user the empathy, if you will, of what it is to lose various functions, and be able to use that technique to improve retail stores, transit, buses, and the like. And the fact of the matter is that first we have to get transit to be where people want to go, and then we have to make it truly accessible and be able to use it 24/7, as what I was referring to in the intro. My metric as to whether transportation really works is, if it's July, it's an evening, I want a chocolate ice cream cone, I want to get up and get the ice cream cone. If I have to book it 24 hours in advance, 7 days in advance, that's not life. That's just a very, shall we say, liberally managed prison. Improve the driver finally. So we're doing some work right now with teletherapy and tele-rehab and exercise. in terms of how can we improve the fact that many of you may think that your new car has reduced visibility in the corners. No, the car is fine. Your neck has stopped turning. The back that starts to go in your 20s and your 30s, the various functions. Can we start to have people take the philosophy that your profession, and I would argue your profession alone keeps and it has the ability to bring to everyone else the wellness and well-being around driver, whether it's the driver fit program or anything else. The idea is that it's mind, body, and soul to be able to stay in your home, maintain your health, work, have fun, and get around. So